When the alien queen demanded the guilty be brought before her throne, no one looked at me. They looked at the ground, at their claws, at the ceiling of living crystal above the great hall. Anyone but the lone human standing among them. The chamber was vast enough to swallow cities. Bioluminescent veins pulsed through the walls like the heartbeat of a colossal beast, bathing the gathered delegations in cold blues and sickly violets. Hundreds of alien representatives stood in ordered tiers, scaled, furred, chitin-clad, and forms that defied language entirely. I felt small, fragile, loudly human. At the center of it all, seated upon a throne grown from fused star metal and bone, was Queen Xyrath of the Car Dominion. She was enormous, nearly 3 meters tall, even while seated. Her crown was not worn but grown, a halo of jagged spines framing a face too symmetrical to be accidental. Her eyes regarded the hall with predatory patience, and when she spoke, the air itself seemed to tighten. The crime has been proven. Her voice resonated, translated into every known tongue simultaneously. A star colony lies dead, a species erased. The guilty will be surrendered, or all here will answer. A ripple of fear passed through the hall. I knew what colony she meant, and I knew who had done it. The problem was that the ones truly responsible were not present. They never were. The Car Dominion had summoned the Galactic Council after the destruction of EOS-7, a frontier world vaporized by an experimental weapon. Evidence pointed to human technology, human design, human fingerprints all over the remains. But the weapon hadn't belonged to Earth. It had belonged to Helix Corp, an off-world megacorporation, legally independent, politically untouchable, funded by human governments, but answerable to none. And they had sent me as Earth's representative, a scapegoat wrapped in diplomacy. Queen Xyrath's gaze swept the hall once more. If the guilty do not present themselves, I will choose. That was when I stepped forward. The sound of my boots echoed louder than any weapon discharge. Conversations died. A dozen alien guards shifted, weapons humming as they tracked my movement. I raised my hands slowly. I am human, I said, and I will answer for the crime. Gasps, actual gasps, rippled through the chamber. Some delegates recoiled as if I'd announced a contagious disease. Others stared at me with what I recognized as disbelief and something dangerously close to respect. The Queen leaned forward. You claim guilt? No, I said, my voice steady despite my pulse screaming in my ears. I claim responsibility. There's a difference. Humans understand that. She studied me for a long moment. Her inner eyelids flickered, a car sign of calculation. Explain. So I did. I told them about Helix Corporation, about the illegal weapons tests disguised as energy experiments, about how EOS-7 had been labeled uninhabited in the official records, despite having a thriving non-spacefaring civilization. I told them how Helix fired anyway, because profit projections outweighed lives. When I finished, the hall was silent. Then Queen Xyrath rose. When she stood fully, she towered over everyone present. Her shadow swallowed me. You accuse your own kind. Yes. You offer yourself in place of the guilty. Yes. Her claws flexed. Why? The question hit harder than any threat. Because I could lie. Because I could hide behind policy and treaties like everyone else had. But I thought of EOS-7. Of the images I'd seen. The burned forests. The fused skeletons of beings who never even knew we existed. Because, I said quietly, if we keep letting monsters hide behind flags and corporations, then the rest of US deserve whatever judgment comes. The Queen's 4 eyes narrowed. You are prepared to die for this? I swallowed. Yes. The word tasted like iron. For a long time, nothing happened. Then she did something no one expected. She laughed. It wasn't cruel or mocking. It was old. Human, Queen Xyrath said. Do you know why your species terrifies the galaxy? I shook my head. Because you are the only species that turns inward before striking outward. You punish yourselves. You tear down your own monsters. She stepped down from the throne. Each footfall shook the chamber. But intent does not erase blood. Justice must be seen. I was led away in energy restraints that hummed against my skin. The council watched as I was taken, whispers following me like ghosts. They put me in a cell grown from organic alloy. No bars. No doors. Just walls that hardened when I approached. I had time to think. A lot of it. I thought about Earth. About how my government would disavow me within hours. About how Helix Corp executives would sleep soundly, knowing someone else was paying their debt. And strangely, I didn't regret it. 3 cycles later, the guards returned. I was brought back to the throne chamber, this time alone. No council, no witnesses, just the queen. She circled me slowly. The Dominion investigated your claims, she said. Helix Corp exists. The weapon exists. The massacre occurred as you described. My chest tightened. Then you know I'm not the guilty one. No, she agreed. You are not. Relief surged, then vanished when she continued. But you are responsible. I frowned. She stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see scars beneath her crown. You are human. Humans created the structures that allowed this crime. Humans benefited from the silence. Justice demands a reckoning, but not the one you expect. She gestured, and the chamber shifted. The walls became translucent, revealing space beyond. Hundreds of car warships, all powered down, waiting. I could burn your world, she said calmly, but that would teach nothing. Instead, I offer a trial by action. My heart pounded. You will return to your people as my voice. You will expose Helix Corporation. You will dismantle them publicly. If you succeed, the debt is paid. If you fail, her claws tap the floor. The Dominion will collect. I exhaled slowly. You're trusting me? No, she corrected. I am using you. The most dangerous weapon humanity possesses, its conscience. I was returned to Earth under Dominion watch. What followed wasn't a war. It was worse. I leaked everything. Internal memos, weapon schematics, black budget transfers. The footage Helix thought no one would ever see. The galaxy watched. Earth burned, not with fire, but outrage. Governments collapsed. Executives were arrested. Helix Corp became a symbol of shame taught in schools across a dozen species. It took years. People died. People resisted. But humanity did what it always does when cornered by its better angels. It changed. When I returned to the car throne world, I wasn't in chains. Queen Xyrath met me again beneath the living crystal. The guilty have fallen, she said. The debt is settled. I bowed my head. And EOS 7? Her gaze softened, just a fraction. We will rebuild what we can, in their memory. As I turned to leave, she spoke one last time. Human, the galaxy will remember this. When your species stands alone, others will stand with you. For the first time since EOS 7 burned, I believed her. Because one human stepping forward wasn't weakness. It was proof that we could still choose who we are. And that terrified the stars more than any weapon ever could. The galaxy did not change overnight. That was the lie people like to tell later. That one confession, one trial, one exposed corporation had somehow cleansed centuries of rot. Real change was slower. Messier. It crept forward like a wounded animal, cautious and bleeding, unsure whether it would survive its own healing. I stayed on Earth after the trial. Not because I wanted to, but because I had nowhere else to go. To some, I was a hero. The man who stood before an alien queen and lived. The human who stopped a war before it began. To others, I was a traitor who had embarrassed our species on a galactic stage. A man who aired humanity's darkest sins to beings who already feared us. Both sides were wrong. I hadn't saved humanity. I had merely refused to let it hide. Helix Corp was gone in name, but its shadow lingered. Courtrooms across Earth and its colonies remained filled for years. Executives aged 10 years in a single month as verdicts were handed down. Assets were seized. Entire industries collapsed and were rebuilt under new oversight, some human, some not. For the first time, alien observers sat openly in our courts. That alone changed everything. When people know they are being watched, not by gods, not by myths, but by neighbors who can walk away, they behave differently. The Car Dominion did not interfere. They didn't need to. Their warships remained at the edge of known space, silent reminders that justice, once invoked, does not forget. I was summoned back to the throne world exactly 5 years after Eos 7 burned. Not as a prisoner, as a witness. The memorial stood where the colony once orbited its star, a ring of living crystal and stone, etched with symbols from dozens of species. At its center burned a soft blue light, Car funerary fire, meant to represent lives extinguished but not erased. Queen Zyrith stood beside me, her crown more subdued than before. Age had touched her, just as it touches all rulers, no matter how powerful. Your people kept their word, she said. They tried. I replied honestly. She inclined her head. Trying is how civilizations survive their own reflection. Delegations arrived one by one. Species that had once whispered about humans now spoke openly. Some thanked me. Others warned me. A few simply observed, measuring whether we were worth the risk of trust. Then something unexpected happened. A Car child stepped forward, small, awkward, her crown not yet grown. She placed a carved stone at the base of the memorial. For the silent ones, she said softly. I felt my throat tighten. In that moment, I understood the true verdict of the trial. Not mine, humanity's. We had been found dangerous, but not beyond redemption. As I prepared to leave, Queen Zyrith spoke one final decree, not just to me, but to the gathered stars. Let it be recorded, when judgment was demanded, a human stepped forward alone, not with weapons, not with denial, but with truth. Her eyes met mine. This will not be forgotten. On the journey back to Earth, I looked out at the stars and felt something unfamiliar. Not pride. Responsibility. The universe now knew what we were capable of, both the horror and the courage. Every future action would be measured against that moment in the throne hall. One human. One step. I am no longer special. That's the best part. Because now, when the galaxy demands accountability, it won't be just one of us standing alone. It will be many. And that, more than any weapon or fleet, is what truly makes humanity dangerous.